thank you for being here, and we will go ahead and begin. I'm Maggie Deaton from the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy, the Cox Campus, and my role is to be the dual language learner lead facilitator. And today we're here to walk you through the birth through 5 year-long journey, the first session of the new school year, an introduction to an ecosystem approach to developing the foundation of reading in the early years. And we're going to talk about what we mean by ecosystem, and we're going to talk about what we mean by journey, and how this year, each month, we're going to take one piece of this learning ecosystem where children can thrive and break it down, learn alongside each other, and we'll see how this journey unfolds. And so we just look forward to being with you today and spending the next hour together.
And I'm Terry Fisher-Ari. I'm also from Rollins and the Language and Literacy focus of Literacy and Justice for All Birth through 5. And I'm a field implementation coordinator, and I really center a lot of my wonderings alongside of teachers as we think about how to create spaces where all children can thrive. And so that's really what we're doing here together today and for our whole journey, for the year-long journey, and always at Cox Campus as a learning community working together to make sure the literacy and justice happen for the first time for all of our children. So we are so glad you're here and can't wait to think with you together today and forever. So welcome to the family.
Thanks, Terry. All right, so as we move forward, thank you for introducing yourself, Terry, and sharing. And as I shared, I work with the Dual Language Learner Program. And so
So I think Maggie might have just gone quiet, but she is our dual language learner facilitator and lead, and spends a lot of her time thinking about what it means to make sure that equity and justice happen for all of our children, specifically children who are learning in multiple languages and whose family bring such rich linguistic and cultural stories to our work that shape our shared community. So as we are thinking together, the very first thing we're going to do is think a little bit more about some of the processes of our day together today. We have some norms and some tech things. So thanks y'all for shouting out what state you were living in and where you're coming from. If you didn't get a chance or you want to do it again, please let us know where you're coming from. And if you're already a Cox member, wonderful. If you're not, please take a couple minutes today to sign up and become a part of our shared journey, our collaboration, to be sure that all of us have each other as we're working to support all of our learners. So we see the roll call poll, rocking it out now, talking about our roles, what we do, who we are, where we're from. So friends who are not yet Cox members, please take a minute and join our forever free community with so many resources that help us all become better versions of the teachers, educators, child-facing adults who are working to be in community with each other. So if you're one of the 15%, take a little bit of time and sign up. This is an opportunity to join a movement, really, a community that is working for justice for all of our children. Thank you for being here. It's good to be with all of you today. And again, if you're new to our journey, we are so glad you're here.
We have a mix of teachers and coaches, family members. So it's wonderful to everybody's bringing their unique perspective to today.
And if you have multiple roles, we get it. All of us have so many hats. So whichever one you're sitting with today, or whichever one you feel like indicating, that is great. We're so glad you're here. It takes all of us doing all the things we do.
Yes. All right, so we're going to keep going to our next slide here. Right. And so when we think about the Cox campus, really what are our core values? We want to think about those. We think about this for our experience and our learning community on Cox campus. And even today in our year-long journey, we want this time to be rewarding for you, empowering, that you leave feeling inspired by connecting with one another, that this is a safe place where you feel like you can share and take risks to learn, just like we do for children. We create welcoming spaces so they can take risks, to learn. And we want this to be essential. We want this to feel like this was helpful. And this is the beginning of a journey that will unfold, that throughout the course of the year will be essential to you and helpful to you, not just because of what we have to share, but because what we have to share with each other. And so let's look at kind of where we're going with our agenda today. Right. So we're going to have an opening connection that Terry's going to lead us through that I'm excited about. And then we're going to introduce, what do we mean by ecosystem anyway? And within that, what we call the ecosystem, we say there's 9 essential elements. So we're going to look at just an overview of those 9 essential elements, look at a clip for a classroom and say, what pieces of the ecosystem, those essential elements, are we seeing? We're going to practice that together. We're going to show you 2 tools that you can use starting tomorrow to help in your own learning spaces. And then we're really excited because this year, different than year-long journey last year, we're going to have the chance, the tech tools, to make sure we have breakout rooms. So you're not just hearing from us, but from each other. And we're going to spend some time looking at those tools and talking about, what do we notice? What are you excited about? What do you want to learn more about going forward? And how might this be helpful to you? And then we're going to share, looking ahead to next month, the following month, how the journey will unfold.
So speaking of journeys, y'all, it's summer and all of us are in the midst of our specific space in our journey. So as you think about the word journey anyway, what is really resonating with you? We put up some pictures here to just kind of inspire and jog your thinking as you consider what journey means, what it means to be going somewhere, and what inspires you when you look at all these visuals. We know visuals enter our brains differently, they hit our emotionality differently, and they inspire us in different ways. So as you take a look at these images, are there any that are really resonating with you, that are inspiring you, or that you're excited about? Yes, drop them in the chat. Y'all are reading my mind. Drop them in, or feel free to come off mute and tell us what you're thinking about, what's inspiring you today. We'd love to hear what you chose and why it's significant to you.
And so I'm seeing numbers come through. Some of you are choosing 1, which is awesome. Some of you are choosing 3, and that's okay too. Sometimes we have different images that resonate. And you can add to the chat, as Terry's saying, why did you choose the one you did? And then in just a minute, after these numbers come in, we'd love for a few of you to share, I chose number 5 and I chose it for this reason. This is what it's making me think.
See a lot of us resonating with several pictures.
Yes. Thank you. I see Shantae saying 2, 7, because it looks peaceful and
stress-free. What a nice journey.
And some people may, when they hear the word journey, not think about peaceful and stress-free. You might have different emotions you attach to that word journey, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. I saw 6. I'm seeing 5. Our rides can be bumpy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, freedom and journey.
Yeah.
And as we think about safe spaces, thinking about brave spaces, and how our journeys are spaces for freedom and connection and bravery.
Awesome.
So exciting. Anybody want to come off mute and tell us a little bit about what inspired you today? 4 and 5.
I will. So I chose 1 and 2, but then after I thought about it, 2 spoke to me more because it reminds me of a book that's called What the Road Said. Mm-hmm. And about with the book, it just talks about this journey that you're on. And though it has twists and turns, you just stay on it through season in and season out. And so the road, the picture of the road just really reminded me of the journey. You don't necessarily know where it leads, even though you might see mountains in front of you, you don't know what's past the mountains. It's just part of the experience of being on that road.
Thank you for sharing, Shayna. We make the road by walking, and we venture the journey by doing it together. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
And to build on that togetherness, thank you, Roberta. I saw you put 1 and 5, the work of doing journeys together. And Terry shared with me recently about that image 5, right? Like we each take turns flying in the lead. We take on the burdens differently and we take leadership. Sometimes we're in that front space and sometimes we're coming behind, but we're always working together and we need that encouragement along the way. Yeah. Thank you, Jeanette. What's learned along the way is a huge part of the journey, right? We don't always know what that's going to be.
I'll share. I chose number 4 because everything's in one place, right? You're just kind of scaffolding and building off of what you already have.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that convenience.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, we don't come empty-handed on our journeys. We come with all of our experiences, all of the tools and the ideas and the resources. And so how do we bring them to bear to do something new and exciting together? That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing how Thor resonated with you.
And Farrellyn, I saw you come off mute. Would you like to share?
You want to take this needle? About what I got a question.
Sure.
What the question was?
Oh, great.
Sure.
The question was, go ahead, Terry.
Do any of these pictures, when you think of journey, are any of these pictures resonating with you or seeming to kind of speak to you as you think about a journey?
I think journey in the education center, I think is for me. I love being with children. It helped me get strengthened to learn each children in a way that you imagine them to be in different. They be different, but still the same.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to see the children grow over years, when you see them when they was a little child in preschool or whatever, till they get older, that's this journey with me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and so what we hope to be, what we are not yet, what children might be, all of the future possibility of journeying and of the journey that we're on alongside of children every day. And how exciting is this journey when we are alongside of our future, walking alongside of children daily. It is so exciting being on this part of the journey with you all as we start the very beginning of our year-long journey of this opportunity to bring what we have, our wonderings, our experiences, centering what we know and what we've already learned as we are alongside of children every day, uplifting each other, carrying along each other, and not knowing exactly what's in store for us, but knowing that the adventure is a space to be brave and to grow. So we're so excited to welcome you to our year-long journey as we together take up the process of thinking about who we can become. What is our possibility when we bring what we know from science, what we learn from each other, and what we have been and are every day of our lives, because we're not coming empty-handed either. And as we work together to build a community where children can thrive and where we all learn and grow. So welcome to the journey, y'all. Year-long journey 22-23. We're so glad you're here. We can't wait to learn and grow together.
Thank you. And so I'm going to introduce kind of what this journey is going to look like. Jessica, did you have anything you wanted to share? Jessica Ingram, I saw you come on. Okay, you're good. Well, feel free to share later. So when we think about a journey, and Farrellyn, you said it well, we can, as teachers, as educators, as leaders, know about what it means to journey, to, come alongside kids as they learn. And for us, we're always learning too. And so when we design this year-long journey, we're thinking about the ecosystem approach. And that is really how we see all of our work. So if you're really familiar with all the Cox Campus content, you've taken tons of courses, or if you've never taken a Cox Campus course and you're here for the first time, those are all good entry points. And we think about our work in an ecosystem. And so this is years ago, I had the incredible opportunity to go to Costa Rica. So on the left, you see a picture of it's the rainforest, a big tree in a national park. And in Costa Rica, in order to go into that ecosystem, into that rainforest, you have to have a guide because all of their parks are protected. And they don't want people just wandering there, messing things up. They want you to go with a guide. So this the guide, and this guide had a tool that helped you zoom in. So when we think about learning ecosystems, think about it like a rainforest. Within the rainforest, when you zoom in, you see this macaw, this colorful bird, you see this tiny bird, and all of these elements work together: the rain, the sun, the ocean there by the rainforest, the fact that the government there protects these spaces with systems like this state park having to have guides. All of that is part of the ecosystem that makes this rainforest strong. And so if we go to the next slide, if we take that kind of analogy and think about where kids learn, we tried to think about all of our work on Cox Campus and how it fits in to an ecosystem. And so all of our courses, we then went back and said, we kind of need a welcome course, something that fits all the pieces together. And so one of our most recent courses, our ecosystem course, is broken into, it kind of says, here's our welcome. This is our welcome mat. Let us tell you kind of how the whole ecosystem looks. And then if you want to learn more about one of these elements, here's the connected courses. And so how we're going to unfold, how this journey is going to unfold is that each month, we're going to look at one of these elements deeply. So we invite you to take the ecosystem course with us and then follow that where it takes you. If you take the course and say, I really want to learn more about one of these elements, let me look at what courses are related. So it's kind of a pick your own adventure in some ways, following what you need in your ecosystems. And so here are the 9 elements. Beginning on the left, you see safe and responsive classrooms. So classrooms that are not just physically safe, but emotionally, that it's a kind, nurturing place, because we know relationships are the foundation of all learning. And in the second element, there's spaces where kids can see themselves. They can see themselves in their families, and that their cultures are not just thought of, oh, those are nice, but really honored and leveraged. The third element you see is consistent routines, rituals, and transitions. And we all know as teachers of young children how important those are. And I've been in many times in my own classroom where those were not feeling great. And once they got better, I felt like I could do the other elements. And so here in the yellow, you begin seeing what we call the content cluster. So the blue was the climate. Now we're in the yellow, the content. And so children as conversational partners, not just talking to kids, but with them. Next, really planning around an anchor book and taking that kind of as what holds things together and building off of that to make connections and using that to inform planning. And then the last content piece is a focus on emergent literacy. So phonological awareness, emergent writing, alphabet knowledge, concepts of print all fit into that element. And then it unfolds with red in the connections cluster. And so how do we really observe in meaningful ways and monitor progress so that we know where kids are so we can support them in their next step? And how do we do that alongside families too? The next one here is making connections for dual language learners. So really giving intentional linguistic support, using their first language, using props, using visuals. And last but not least, strong partnerships with families, really believing that as educators, we're one piece and that families are the child's first teachers and seeing the many strengths they bring. And so this is the quick overview, and we're going to go deeply into each element starting next month with safe and responsive climate. But we wanted to show you how the journey is going to unfold. And in the chat, Alex, our amazing teammate, Alex, we have teammates on the call who are supporting us. Thank you, Toki, Trina, Alex, Sam, Shantae, whose faces you don't see, but who are here with us. And we're going to get that in the chat so you can kind of have this fan for you. And so we'll go to the next slide, which kind of breaks down these 9 elements into the 3 areas, and we can just look at that briefly. But as I shared, we have climate, content, and connection.
And as you take a look, you might already see areas that you're like, oh, this is an area I'm really strong in, and other areas that you want to focus more on. And so that's part of the exciting part of a journey. There's so much to see and so much to do, and also opportunities to really think about areas of our own interest, our own wonderings, our own inquiries, and also how the journey is all of the pieces put together. So we're excited to be looking closely and carefully at it with you, and also taking it together and seeing how together all of these elements are really critical to make sure that all children have everything that they need, and that we're meaningfully situated alongside of families and communities to make sure that justice and equity is real in our classrooms and our spaces, and that all of our children find the justice and the joy in our classrooms, and that we do too. And so we're so excited to be doing this with you, looking carefully at components, but also seeing how they don't live apart from each other. They all are mutually reliant. So it'll be a really exciting journey to be able to think about both of those things at the same time.
So now we can go forward to the next piece. And this is really an overview. So Terry's going to just introduce this video and talk about how we're going to use this as a practice opportunity.
So what we're going to do is watch this very short clip of Rosario, and she is speaking to her children. So I want you to notice what's going on here. When you take a look at her explaining the transitions from morning meeting to breakfast time, I want you to notice what components of the ecosystem that you just heard about with Maggie and those 9 elements do you see there? So take a minute and think about it as you're watching, see what you notice and what you can celebrate, and we'll talk about it in just a minute.
Recuerden que aquí tenemos en la pared, ¿cómo se llama? El programa diario. Y cada vez que nos movemos de un área a la otra, vamos a mover el óvalo que tenemos ahí de color rojo. Pero ahora va a ser la hora del desayuno. ¿Quién puede cambiarlo en el programa diario? Paola. Vamos a comer desayuno. Muy bien, Paola. Ahora puedes poner tu carpeta y Leo poner su carpeta.
Oh, buenos días, Alessandra. ¿Cómo estás?
You can stop right there.
Hola, Michael.
Okay, so you got a little teaser into another thing to think about too. But as you think back to Rosario and her kids on the carpet, what did you notice during that transition? Were there elements that you saw? Maybe we could flip back a couple slides to be able to look at those elements.
One more.
Thank you. So take a minute. What did you see? What did you notice? Feel free to drop it in the chat or come on off mute and let us know what you saw when you were thinking about the elements that Rosario was integrating. Connection, visual aids, consistent routines. Thank you, Susan. Other friends? Thoughts?
Culturally responsive and preserving environment.
Consistent routines and rituals, culturally responsive.
Yeah.
Children as partners. Intentional support for language learners. Anybody want to come off mute and talk about what they noticed?
I noticed the teacher had all the children, in active of the activity she's doing with them in the circle. They all were communicating together instead of talking over each other.
Yeah. Thank you, Farrellyn.
Yeah, thank you. And you saw the visual schedule with the red oval. So lots of visual supports for dual language learners.
And using her first language was a support for dual language learners. In this case, this is a bilingual program, and all of the children that you saw there spoke Spanish. So we can use linguistic supports, whether or not the whole class speaks one language. But in this case, that's some of the background there, that she used the first language intentionally to support DLLs to know what was coming next, dual language learners. And I saw some people say safe and responsive climate. Even if you didn't know even if it wasn't subtitled, you could hear the tone. You could see kind of the peaceful way the children were interacting. And that's because of the relationships they had, because of the climate they've established. And that visual schedule that I know is so easy to put up and so much harder to actually use, that she incorporated it in her movement, that there was that little red circle the red oval that Paola moved from one place to the next. All right. So we can go.
So
go ahead, Terry.
30-second clip. There are ways that we can see the really specific intentional supports. And teachers, y'all, we make millions of decisions a day. Says we make 5,000, but actually every side eye, every glance, every time we use proximity, they're all decisions and opportunities to be more intentional about any of these elements. So it's really interesting how in a 30-second, 1-minute clip, we can see evidence of so many of these opportunities that we can take up every day as we move incrementally to be kinder and better versions of ourselves all together.
Awesome.
And I see you totally, Lily, about in the second clip, the teacher again using Spanish, the child's first language, to be welcoming and to build that safe climate.
And we didn't go deep into that clip. We didn't have time for that today, but this really is true for infants. These elements, this is true. We really look at this in the birth through age 5 space, but this, if you are coming from a space that is older, we can think about what elements help children learn at all ages and help us as adults even learn. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Lois, for your contribution in the chat. And so we're going to move forward, and my amazing teammate, Sam, and others who are dropping things in the chat, we're going to put 2 things in the chat, and we want to ask you to open them. And these are 2 tools that you find in the course. And so the first is the ecosystem construction measure tool. So you're going to find that in your chat, and you're going to also find a companion document called A Closer Look at the Elements. So it kind of breaks down the 9 elements. So I want to talk first about the tool as it comes into the chat. And this tool, you kind of see it real small on the screen here, but it's a big document and it takes each element. And it's a tool, not an evaluative tool. It's not meant to, as directors, to go in and mark each one and give a score to your classrooms. It's really a tool for reflection and a tool for you to decide as a site. Let's look across our whole site. Maybe that's a school, maybe that's an early learning center, maybe that's a space that has all pre-K classrooms, or maybe that's a space that has infant through pre-K classrooms, to say, how are we doing as a community? If this first one that you see on the screen, the example is for culturally responsive and preserving environment. So you can kind of see the indicators and decide as a team. Maybe your director sits down with some teachers, or your principal sits down with your instructional support person, some teachers and some assistant teachers, and say, are we emerging here? Are we not really yet? Are we developing? We're doing this, but we could still work on this. Are we established? Like, we're really feeling confident about this. And this process, when you go through all 9 elements, helps you decide you can't do everything at once, right? We all want to, but it helps us hone in and say, we have some strengths, and really identify what those are. What are we already established in? And then let's move our attention to the elements where maybe we feel less established. Maybe we're developing, or maybe we're emerging, and we can decide as a team where to focus. And then as we decide that for our community, we can go one by one and say, okay, Maggie, I know that you said you need to work on being more culturally responsive and preserving. Tell me more about that. What do you want your personal goal in your classroom to be? And then maybe Terry in her classroom has a different goal, but still connected to culturally responsive and preserving environment. And so that might look like each person choosing a few elements to focus on. And so this tool is a tool to help us reflect, see how we're doing, and goal set together. And the second tool is kind of a support. Once we've identified our goals, we can look and say, let me look. So we can go to the next slide and see the example there. And that's called the Closer Look at the Elements Guidance document. And it's broken up into parts. It says, what is it? What is this element anyway? Why does it matter? And then what does it look like? It has some indicators, because sometimes the title, I might want to say like, okay, emergent literacy, what do you mean by that? And so what does it look like breaks it down. What would you see teachers doing? What would you see children doing, or adults really? Because it's not always just teachers, right? It's all of the adults in the learning ecosystem. And then it gives some practice in action. It has QR codes that takes you to videos or to pictures of real classrooms, so you can see some examples. Tells you connected courses. So if you want to learn more about a safe and responsive classroom, which course should you take? And it points you in the right direction, and also what resources in the resource library might be helpful. If you're trying to work on routines and transitions, maybe you need some visual transition pictures that you can print out to support you. And so that would be listed. Then it gives you some reflection questions that you might think about personally, or you might decide to think about them as a team in a professional learning community or in a planning meeting. and then additional resources. And so, Sam, are you able to pull up that resource so we can see what it looks like?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Thank you. And I think both of these documents should be in the chat. So as Sam pulls it up for us to look at together, go ahead and pull it up on your screen. So we're going to spend some time looking at it in a moment. And all of these you can find on the Cox campus. All right. And so if we go just to page 3, we can see an example for the first element, safe and responsive classroom. And you see kind of it talks about what is it, why does it matter, then the indicators, what does this look like for adults and children. Sometimes we break it down based infants, toddlers, and then preschool pre-K because it looks different sometimes with different ages, each element. And then as it carries forward and goes to page 4, those indicators continue. You see the QR codes and links to take you to examples. And all of these other elements I already lifted up, reflection questions, connected content. And so we want to just put 5 minutes on the clock and ask you to open both resources and spend some time looking at them yourself. Some people are kind of internal processors, just like to read and look at it. These are huge documents. You're not going to be able to explore them all in these 5 minutes, but we want you to just get a quick taste of what the resource offers. And then after this 5 minutes, we're going to move into some time in breakout rooms where we can talk about them together. Mary, do you have anything to add?
Just that Susan lifted up that you might need to log on to Cox Campus to be able to open them. And if that's the case, then take a moment in your 5 minutes to go ahead and sign up for Cox Campus so you have an active account, and then you'll be able to easily follow the links and pull both of these documents down. Like Maggie said, there is no test at the end. This is not a test. This is an opportunity to kind of notice what you see at first pass, at first glance. What sticks out to you? What do you notice? What do you wonder? What are you excited about? So as you think through and you're just glancing through the documents and perusing them really, notice, what are you excited about? What looks more interesting? What do you want to learn more about? And we'll come back and talk about those things.
Yeah, so take 5 minutes and know that if you're having trouble pulling it up, that we are going to send a follow-up email to everybody who participated today that will include links to these resources. So thank you for taking just a few minutes to explore those 2 resources that Alex dropped in the chat, the closer look at the elements guidance document that goes deeper into each element, and then that reflection tool, the ecosystem construction measure that helps us goal set. And so Terry's going to tell us about what we're going to do next, but as a reminder, we're going to send these to you so you can explore them further in your own time, and you can find both on Cox Campus.
So as we mentioned, we're sure you are not fully as familiar with these as you want to be. But as you are going into these breakout rooms, just take your noticings. What did you notice at first pass? What are you excited about? How might these tools be helpful to you in your context, in your work, in your journey? So as we think about this together, we're just going to go into some breakout rooms and have some conversation about what resonated, what seemed exciting, and what we can see an immediate use for in our context. Can't wait to hear where you are in this space of the journey. And so when you come back, we'll share out just a little bit and think about what we heard, what we're thinking about. You'll have about 8 minutes in this breakout room, and you'll have about 8 other people joining with you. So if you're in a place where you can come off mute and be a part of the active conversation, we love that. And if you're in a place where you need to listen and learn from the folks that are in your breakout room too, we understand that too. And we're all where we are in the journey. So we can't wait to join the breakout rooms with you. And we'll see you back here in 8 minutes as you are thinking together about what are you excited about with this tool and what might you take up? What do you want to learn more about?
So have fun in breakout rooms. Turn on your camera if you can. It's always nice to see each other's faces when you're in those small groups, and we'll see you soon. And if you're having trouble joining breakout rooms for any reason, you should get an invitation on your screen. But if you don't, you can go down to the bottom at your toolbar and you'll either see breakout rooms and click there and see your option to join, or go over to the 3 dots where it says more and there's 3 dots. Click there, choose breakout rooms, and you'll see the invitation from Sam to join a room. Right. And if you are in your car and you are just not able to touch that breakout button and be safe, and you need to just stay in the main session, that's okay too. But we do invite you to go and learn from your colleagues in those breakout rooms, if at all possible for you. Here, I just sent a reminder of the question to focus on the breakout room to all rooms.
Thank you.
just joined or had to drop off and come back, we are in breakout rooms. Many people are in breakout rooms discussing what they noticed and a couple of resources we shared. And everybody's going to come back to the main room in about 2 minutes. So I'm going to close the breakout room and have everybody come back together to the main session.
Welcome back if you're coming back. Our friends are coming back from their breakout rooms and we'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Being recorded.
So if you're here, just take a second and take a breath. Be present where you are on the journey. Our friends are coming back now. Welcome back, friends. I hope you had really fruitful discussions in your breakout rooms. We're going to take just a couple of minutes. Please drop in the chat or come off mute and share something interesting that you heard, or if you have an insight that you just can't wait to share with the group, we'd love to hear from you. So please take a minute. What did you discover in your breakout rooms and these great conversations with your colleagues from near and far? Drop in a note in the chat or come off mute. We'd love to hear for just a couple minutes any insights. Reflection question. As an opportunity for real thoughtful discussion. Here. That it's self-paced, that people have opportunities to follow their own questions.
We actually talked about the fact that the younger age children are the focus as opposed to elementary age. I mean, we're getting them really early and building that foundation so that they can learn to read to learn when they get to third grade. So that just the importance again of building this foundation early.
Right from the start, right?
Yes.
From the third trimester on. Thank you so much for sharing that, Margie. And I see, Shana, the opportunity for self-accountability through the ecosystem and opportunities for us to try different things, Bridget. Try different things to support the environment and the ecosystem and acknowledge the emotional worlds of children and the safety that we can create together in a climate that is really enabling all of our children to thrive. So thank you all, friends. This is just the beginning of this conversation. And so we're going to spend just a couple minutes thinking about really just a couple of wonderings. Now that you've been able to think about these 9 elements, we're going to share a poll where you can just select any element that you feel is really a strength of your learning community. So the first question in the poll you'll see populated in just a second. Is there one that you're like, as I read about this, I feel like we're really really strong on this. This is a strength that we can build from.
So you're going to see all 9 of those elements we talked about come up, and you can just choose the one you feel strongest. And Charlize, I saw you put, this tool focuses on the practice, not the person. We all have room to grow. And so really saying, what is it that I can do differently? Not because I'm not good enough, but because I always want to grow, just like children are always growing. So thank you for that.
And we can't focus on everything at the same time. And so it lets us turn our lens to some specific things that we want to grow in on our journey. So as I look at our poll, I see lots of friends feeling strong about building that safe and responsive climate, some strengths of family partnerships and situating children as conversational partners. So as we think about this, our strengths are always opportunities to grow in and also to leverage as we grow on our journey. So our next poll, which is just really fast, is there an element that you really want to focus on this year? As you think about these 9 elements, is there one you're like, I can't wait to dig into this and think more about this and try some things in my practice? So let us know, how are you feeling? What are some areas you most want to focus? I see a lot of folks who want to focus on culturally responsive and preserving environment, opportunities to plan around an anchor book. So we have opportunities to lift language across the day and week with focused texts that are beautiful and responsive. I'm seeing we have opportunity in this journey to grow together, y'all. And just like the geese, sometimes we'll be the leaders and sometimes we'll be uplifted by the strength of others. So I'm so excited to be on this journey with y'all.
Awesome. And so that's really helpful information for us too, as we plan, and we want to come to the next slide. We've talked about the poll. And so the next session is going to be about safe and responsive climate. And so if you haven't joined Cox Campus, please do, and we'll pull it up here in a second. Just Cox Campus is full of courses, resources, places to discuss with one another, resources for families. And so we ask that just an immediate action, go ahead and sign up, explore, look for these 2 resources by using the search bar, and then see what you find along the way. And it's always free. It doesn't, as soon as you log in, everything on there is free to you and free to anyone you want to share with. So we are proud and excited about that. And we're going to go here next to see what's up and coming. And before we do that, we just want to ask, how did we do today? We always want to grow, right? Terry and I and our incredible team of amazing facilitators, we're going to take turns leading these sessions. So we want to take your feedback and grow. And so on August 17th, I will be back for the next year-long journey with my teammate and the amazing Lethea Lipscomb. As if you have taken our most recent progress monitoring course, you might recognize her as the very fun facilitator and guide through that course. And so
through your journey through progress,
through the journey, right? It's a road trip themed course, progress monitoring. So we're going to see you on August 17th. You're welcome back to explore the first element. And then on the 15th, Terry and I will be together to really look at culturally responsive and preserving environment, which we absolutely love talking about. And we saw a lot of people vote that that's something they want to work on or think about together. But also, if you are here and you're like, you know what, I'm in the K-3 space, we have year-long journeys designed for you, year-long journeys for K-3 leaders. We have an instructional coaching track. So if you're an instructional coach or you are thinking that maybe one day you are interested in that kind of work, we have a track for you. And so go to Cox Campus, check out the events page, and also know that you don't have to wait for these sessions to use these resources or to look at them and say, I want to explore more about using an anchor book to plan around. Let me look at what courses and resources are connected to that. So feel free to get started on Cox right away and to begin to use the resources, and then join us back live for the next year-long journey sessions. And thank you to Alex. He dropped the calendar so you can see the full suite of all 9 of the next sessions and then the other tracks too. And then look out for us. We'll be sharing some other kind of deeper dives into smaller groups for year-long journeys. So look out for some communication around that and reach out if you're interested. And that is what we have. And thank you for responding to our How Did We Do poll, how it deepened your knowledge and how likely you are to try something new.
And you'll find a year-long journey that is going to fit you. So if you're interested in being an instructional coach, check out that one. K3, check out that. And we can't wait to see you here on our year-long journey, birth through 5, as we think about how do we create a space where all of us can thrive together. We hope you have a really beautiful day. We're so glad you joined us.
Thank you for being here. And as we close, Sam, if you can just pull up Cox, if you have a minute to stay on, we're just going to navigate to the ecosystem course so you can see exactly where that is if you want to go ahead and get the full overview before coming to the next session on August 17th, or even get started on it. And so you go to the Cox campus, you're going to click on educators on the far left, choose courses, and it is in both the infant, toddler, and preschool pre-K track, so choose either. And then once you choose that course track, you can scroll down until you see this course, an ecosystem approach to developing the foundation for reading in the early years. So thank you all for spending time with us. Thank you for bringing all your expertise and wisdom, sharing with us with your voices, with chat and the polls, and in breakout rooms with one another. So we really appreciate your time. We know it's precious.
We can't wait to see you on the journey. Be well. Have a beautiful day, y'all.